So this is a topic I know a bunch of people in my audience have been waiting for me to talk about, and you can thank one of my patrons on Patreon, Love Spencer, for recommending this topic, because that was what finally made me say, okay, all right, I'll do it. I'll throw my hands up. You guys want it, I'll give it to you. Also, I want to thank Cobra Commander for signing up as a patron. And I read your message. I think that's a good topic suggestion, and I will definitely try to get to that. And by the way, I love your screen name, little throwback to G.I. Joe, for those of you who don't get it. But if anybody else wants to help contribute to the show, I'd greatly appreciate that. You can sign up to be a patron. If you prefer, you can make a one-time contribution through PayPal. And I'm also doing a partnership with this company called Mask Up, where if you click the link in my About page and go to their website, I get 20% commission from whatever you spend at their website. Their masks are about $17. If you buy 3, you get the 4th one free, and you get free shipping. So if you guys want a mask or something like that, you can go to the link. It's in the About page of my YouTube channel, as well as the links to my Patreon and PayPal. So there you go. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's get into this whole lesser of two evils debate. So let me start with this. I think the calculation that a lot of people made that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils when compared to Trump, I think that is just a default assumption. I think a lot of it is just groupthink. This is what everybody says. Democrats are lesser of two evils, and we're not going to get into the details. I think that's where people have gotten the takeaway that Joe Biden is somehow the lesser of two evils. And it was always weird to me how quick that was just the default position in the whole lesser of two evils debate. Because it's not like Joe Biden is like some newbie Democrat with a short record, but he's a corporate tool or whatever. No, Joe Biden is one of the most destructive politicians in recent memory. He's been on the wrong side of almost every policy issue, and he's one of the chief architects for this corrupt, corporatist political system that we have right now. So I always disagreed with how quick everyone was to minimize the glaring and indefensible flaws of Joe Biden. Yes, Donald Trump's a madman, he's unhinged, and he's a corporate tool and all of that. But there is a real conversation to be had whether or not Joe Biden is worse than him. And I don't think anybody has entertained that conversation. Not even most people in left new media. So after I put a lot of thought into who is really the lesser of two evils, I realized I was overthinking it. And I do believe that Joe Biden is the worst evil compared to Donald Trump. And let me tell you why. But first, let me be explicitly clear. This isn't me saying I'm voting for Donald Trump. I wouldn't tell anybody to vote for Donald Trump. He's also a corporate tool, corrupt politician, an oligarch, a tool of the establishment, and he's going to make your life worse. That's why I would never vote for Donald Trump, whether he was the lesser evil or the greater evil, and the same with Joe Biden. But the reason why I think Joe Biden is the worst evil comes down to two things, really. One, his horrific record, his horrific policy record that he's racked up in his 50 years in politics. Wrong side of almost every issue, as you guys know. And I'll get into some specifics in a little bit. But the second reason why I think Joe Biden isn't the lesser of two evils is something that I've talked about on the show previously, which is the role that the Democrats play as controlled opposition in this oligarchy. When Democrats have power, they can do some of the most heinous, destructive right-wing policies that any Republican would do, but they don't get nearly the same pushback and criticism from the public. It's true when people say this. When Democrats are in power, there is a good portion of the left, a good percentage of this country, that shuts their mind off. They go to sleep. They say, hey, the good guys won, so I don't really have anything else to do here. Democrats are on my team. Therefore, they must be fighting for the policies that will help my life. So I'm not really going to be involved, and they're the experts. I'll let them handle it. That's the mindset that a huge amount of this country has. It was evident under the Obama administration. When Bush was leaving towards the end of his term, he was incredibly unpopular, one of the most unpopular politicians in the country ever. There were some polls that had his approval rating like in the teens, low 20s. He was despised in the country, and there was damn near a revolt to get him out of office, and people were definitely pushing for the Democrats to impeach him because that's how bad the public saw Bush. In comes Barack Obama administration, continues all of the same destructive policies as the Bush administration, gets none of the pushback. Obama comes in, one of the most popular presidents in recent history, actually the most popular president in recent history, approval rating in the 60s and in the high 50s. Again, even though doing the same policies as the Bush administration, escalates the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. More than that, expands U.S. imperialism, starts about 5 other wars under his administration, while he's continuing the longest wars in U.S. history. The only president in U.S. history to be at war for 2 full terms, doing genocide for profit, all at the behest of the military-industrial complex. Bombing hospitals, bombing schools, funding and arming jihadists like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Just doing war criminal shit, all for profit. The environmental destruction. Continued the same environmental destruction that we saw under the Bush administration. Nowhere near the same amount of pushback. Continues the new Jim Crow, the drug war, the mass incarceration crisis. Continues to militarize the police. Continues mass surveillance. Escalates the assault on a free press and freedom of speech, going after journalists and whistleblowers. All the heinous policies of the Bush administration, Obama comes in and puts them on steroids, but yet he's still viewed in a positive light by the majority of the country. So I think that the Democrats' ability to play controlled opposition and to put a nice, happy face on corporatism and imperialism, and to give the facade that we're living in any kind of democracy and that people have a choice and a say in government. I think that is incredibly insidious, and it is destructive. And when you consider where we are, this moment in history, and the calamity that we're facing, whether it's a climate apocalypse, economic catastrophe, pandemic raging out of control, unsustainable wealth inequality. When you look at all those different issues, the out of control, lawless, militarized police that we have in this country, when you look at all these issues, it is clear that they're not going to be solved through electoral politics. You're not going to vote for enough Democrats and then poof, climate change is fixed, poof, the drug war is done, and wealth inequality is addressed and the economic crisis is addressed. No, that's not going to happen. You're not going to vote for AOC and Bernie and Ilhan and they're going to take over the House and the Senate and the White House. That's not going to happen. So that means the only option we have left is public pressure. The only tool left in the toolbox is direct action and public pressure campaigns. And when you come to that realization, and when you understand that, you also have to understand, I mean, it's a tautology. It is what it sounds like. In order to have an effective public pressure campaign, you have to have the public on your side. You have to have the public agreeing that direct action is the only way to get UBI, and it's the only way to get Medicare for all, and it's the only way to actually bail out the American people in this time of crisis. But when you have the controlled opposition in power, like I said, there's going to be a huge percentage of the country that thinks, hey, they're on my side, right? The Democrats are nominally on my side on all these different issues, so they're working for me. Why am I going to go out in the street? Why am I going to protest my own team if they're working for me? Let me just let them do what they do. Whatever, they're going to do the best that they can, and they're obviously better than the Republicans. So what's the point of me going out and protesting and going on strike or doing anything like that? They're already doing the best that they can. And just like that, that's the insidious nature of the controlled opposition. It kneecaps really any kind of grassroots movement. It adds a whole other layer of complication to the fight, because people get it. Right wingers bad, Republicans bad. We oppose the Republicans. We have to fight the Republicans. But when, like I said, controlled opposition is in power, now you have the added hurdle of having to convince all the people on the left who went to sleep, who feel like their team's got this. Now you got to convince all those people, hey, the Democrats aren't actually on your team. They're actually just as bad as the Republicans, and they're going to fuck you over just like the Republicans. And you need to be fighting against them just as hard. Now you have to convince them of that. And then you also have to fight the neoliberals. And you also have to fight the right-wingers in government and the Republicans. So it's like a fight on all fronts once you have the controlled opposition in power, versus when you have clear battle lines drawn. Trump bad, Republicans bad. Let's do everything we can to bully them into submission so that they do what we want them to do. That's a much simpler and easy fight for people to digest. But like I said, Democrats and the controlled opposition, they muddy the waters. So I think that's a huge factor, and that's very relevant to the discussion when you're trying to decide who's the lesser of two evils. But I don't ever really hear anybody go into detail and talk about how insidious and how much more difficult it makes the fight when you're dealing with controlled opposition. Now, to the other part of why I don't think Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, I mean, my God, look at his policy record. And you guys know this. Joe Biden is one of the most destructive politicians alive today. His policies have wreaked havoc on the American people endlessly. If that wasn't just disqualifying enough, and I think it is, you have the insult to injury, which is he isn't even really pretending like he's changed at all on these issues. He's still just as bad as he ever was on these different issues. Criminal justice reform. Got this whole mass civil unrest, calling to defund the police, abolish the police, radically reform policing in this country. What's Joe Biden telling everybody? Fuck you. I'm going to pick top cop Kamala Harris, Attorney General of California, and with a disgusting record as a prosecutor. She's going to be my running mate. She's going to be VP. And I'm going to give the police more money. He's bragging about this. I'm going to give the police more money than Donald Trump. So while people are saying divest from this occupying force in minority communities and instead put that money in social programs, Joe Biden is saying, fuck your social programs. I'm going to give more money to the police and you're still going to vote for me. I mean, my God, that's what he's telling us he's going to do, on top of what we already know, how bad he is on this issue of criminal justice policy. Fucking crime bill and all the other, the 94 crime bill and all the other tough on crime laws that Joe Biden passed. Ramping up the war on drugs, giving way for the prison industrial complex, private for-profit prisons across the country, getting paid to lock up black and brown people. Joe Biden did that. So as racist as Donald Trump is, as bad as his policies have been for black and minority people in this country, Joe Biden is responsible for destroying the lives of millions of black people, ripping apart families, forever altering the course of people's life for bullshit crimes like drug possession and drug sales. That's Joe Biden. I think that's incredibly evil. I think that's incredibly immoral. And like I said, you measure that against Donald Trump. He hasn't done anything in the 4 years that he's been president, that harmed the black community more than Joe Biden's record on criminal justice reform. And if we want to talk about race too, Joe Biden was also a fucking segregationist. Donald Trump was racist. You remember the ad he took out, full page ad he took it on in the New York Times, calling for the Central Park Five to be locked up, even though if there's no evidence that they did anything, because they're black, so they probably did commit some other crime. That was racist as fuck. Yeah, it was. But Joe Biden crafted that racist criminal justice system that will lock up black people even if there isn't solid proof that they committed a crime. Joe Biden created that system. But also, on the issue of race, Joe Biden was just a segregationist. Joe Biden was working with literal racist segregationists in the Senate to craft policies and to block policies that were calling for desegregation. Again, Donald Trump's bad on the issue, redlining at his buildings and making all types of racist remarks in public. But he wasn't crafting national policy on the issues of race and segregation and criminal justice. He just wasn't. That was all Joe Biden. Now let's go to the issue that a lot of people think is a no-brainer. Of course, Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump. And that's the issue of climate change. They say, oh, Donald Trump, he's anti-science. He doesn't believe in climate science. He doesn't believe the climate scientists. He doesn't think global warming is a real threat and it's not a real existential threat. All that stuff. Okay, yeah, that's true about Donald Trump, but that's also true about Joe Biden. As much as he says climate change in his speeches or whatever, the way he governs, the way he acts, the way he conducts himself is the same way that a climate denier like Donald Trump would. That's why his campaign team is stacked with executives from the fossil fuel industry, has fucking lobbyists from the fossil fuel industry as his campaign co-chairs. You can get into the debate about certain fuel emissions regulations that Obama put on industry, and Joe Biden would do that or whatever. You can get in that debate. I'm really not that interested in that, because at the end of the day, it's marginal shit that is not going to avert a climate apocalypse. So you get a climate apocalypse with Donald Trump, you get a climate apocalypse with Joe Biden. And it is clear that that's the way it's going to be, because like I said, Joe Biden has executives and lobbyists for the fossil fuel industry crafting his policy. You're going to get climate denying policies either way. You're going to get an administration that is catering to the very same people responsible for the climate crisis anyway. But like I said earlier, you have, if it's Joe Biden, now you have the problem of the controlled opposition. Now you have these normie Democrats, these shit libs who don't really follow this stuff closely and just see a Democrat and they're like, oh, well, obviously we're working on this whole climate change issue. So, I'm not really going to pay attention to that too much. And hopefully Joe Biden fixes it or yada, yada. And him and Kamala Harris will fix it. And the Democrats in the House and the Senate. And like I said, they'll tune out, and they'll tune out at a time where the only actual solution to fix it is if the public is outraged and if the public is applying pressure to the politicians to pass real climate policy. So if we're going to take a real look at what we're getting in terms of climate policy from either of them, both of them are pushing us towards environmental destruction. But at least the public knows that one of them are doing it. At least it's crystal clear to the public that Donald Trump is going to destroy the environment. They don't view Joe Biden the same way. They view Joe Biden as an ally. They view him as, quote, someone who believes in the science, even though he's going around right now telling everybody, we're not going to ban fracking. We're going to keep taking money from the fossil fuel industry. We're going to let them craft the policies. But people still think, hey, he's a Democrat. They see the D by his name, so he's on my side. Again, that's why I think Joe Biden is not the lesser of two evils on this issue. On foreign policy, the wars, this one isn't even close. Donald Trump did not start any new wars as president. Again, he's a war criminal, sanctioned mass murder of civilians, doing genocide for profit like every other president in our recent history. That's all true. Definitely should be tried at The Hague for crimes against humanity. All that's true. But what is also true is he did not start any new wars for 4 years. And granted, not for a lack of trying, but it's because he's so incompetent that he didn't start those wars. All his antagonistic actions towards Iran and Venezuela, it's only by the grace of his incompetence that we didn't actually get into war with these countries. But you get someone like Joe Biden and all of his disciplined and well-trained neocons, you put them in a position where they can start a war. They're going to start that shit. All you have to do is look at Joe Biden's record. Every war, every military conflict that we've been in, military intervention we've been in, for the last 30, 40 years, Joe Biden was on board with it. And he helped architect those military interventions. He's helped lie the country into more wars than I can count. So, again, both of them, war criminals, warmongers, doing genocide for profit. That is true. But with Joe Biden, he is definitely more efficient at starting wars. If Joe Biden and the rest of the belligerent Democrats wanted to actually overthrow Nicolas Maduro and use military intervention, they would have been less ham-handed in trying to concoct a scenario where we get military involved in Venezuela. And if Joe Biden and his neocons put their mind to it, we would be in war in Venezuela right now. I think that makes Joe Biden more dangerous on the issue of foreign policy. And on the economy, again, they're both corporatist tools, shills for the establishment, and really serving on the behalf of rich and powerful donors. For both of them. That's why I'm not voting for either of them. The difference, again, between Joe Biden and Donald Trump comes down to one of them is a lot more efficient and effective at crafting devastating policies that devastate the working class. And that's, of course, that's Joe Biden. And he has also the added benefit of controlled opposition. So even though their economic policies won't be that much different, they'll both push to deregulate Wall Street. They'll both push to deregulate financial institutions and push for more tax cuts for the rich. Joe Biden and the Democrats pushing for the SALT, lowering the SALT cap, the state and local taxes that millionaires have to pay. So they're both in favor of giving more money to the rich, cutting funding to social programs. It was Joe Biden proposing the grand bargain back into the Obama administration, where they were going to try to privatize Social Security, slash it, gut the program, Social Security and Medicare, at the behest of private industry. They both agree on shit like that. They both get goons, Wall Street goons, to be their chief economic advisor. It was Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohn from Goldman Sachs under the Trump administration. And under Joe Biden, he has Larry Summers, his top economic advisor. Chief neoliberal money grabber, bag man for the rich, helping them run out the back door with all the money. That's who Larry Summers is. Helped rig the entire economic system, allowed the rampant fraud and greed and corruption in Wall Street and our financial institutions that led to the crash in '08. He comes back and bails out those very same people who fucked over the economy for everybody else, and tells everyone else to kick rocks, tells the working class to kick rocks. That's who Larry Summers is. That's who's going to come in and shape economic policies when Joe Biden's president. This should merit opposition from the left just as much as they oppose Donald Trump on economic policy. But again, because the controlled opposition factor of the Democrats, you're going to have some people, you're going to have the shit libs rationalize and justify Joe Biden being a complete tool and sellout to corporations as this is just reasonable economic policies, I guess. I don't know. I don't follow this shit. That's what's going to happen. Again, with Donald Trump, the battle lines are much more clear. Billionaire, oligarch, giving money to himself and all his other rich friends. That villain is a lot more clear to the public. But with Joe Biden, it muddies the waters and he gets to go around in his bullshit middle class Joe or working class Joe, whatever the fuck this persona is, and he'll trick a bunch of people in the country into thinking that he's actually doing something to help them, and doing something to address the wealth inequality, when in reality he's going to be making the wealth inequality worse. He's going to be giving even more money to the rich while fucking you over. So I mean, we could do this, go issue by issue, and I'm interested in having a nuanced discussion about this with people. If anybody wants to talk about this in the comments section, if anybody in new media wants to have a conversation on their show or on my show about it, I'm more than happy to do it, because I just strongly disagree with the default position, the default assumption that a lot of people have, that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils than Donald Trump.